As you asked.
Hello, troops. I'm here today to talk to you about Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. Yeah, it's something, I kind of wanted to maybe clear it up a bit, because honestly the story confused the crap out of me. I don't know if you're the same, but it definitely confused the crap out of me. So to be honest, I kind of wanted to just do partially quick summary of the game and then kind of add in my wee opinion at the end on what I thought of it. I know the game's been out for a couple of years, so most people probably know what it's about, but you know what? I don't mind. Some of you might not know what it's about, and you might think, hey, Thumbs might know. I'm kidding. But on with the explanation. Troops. So, the game is set in the late 8th century, apparently, and it's based on Norse mythology, but also Celtic culture, apparently, so I've heard. And Senua is a picked warrior who is from Orkney, by the way. Don't know if you know that, but the Orkney Elves are actually in Scotland. And there's a lot, as I'm sure I mentioned it in the game, but a lot of Scottish things actually really comes from Norse mythology. Like even the things we say to this day still come from Norse mythology, and I think that's really cool. But that's just because I'm Scottish and, Scottish pride. So that's pretty cool. So Senua is basically Scottish, and that's fucking amazing. That's amazing. She arrives, and this is at the beginning of the game. She's arriving at the borders of Helheim, and she's trying to save Dillion's soul from Hela, as you find out throughout the game. Now, this whole thing, she hears voices, right? And I didn't realise that they, at the end of the game, they gave you a cast of the Furies, and I was like, what's the Furies? The Furies are the voices in our head, and it's something that clicked to me as soon as I'd, seen it, and I was editing it, and I was like, because obviously the voices, Thumbs, you poop. But, yes, so she's got voices in her head, and she thinks that she's cursed. And I don't know why they've called the voices the Furies, but the main Fury, being the narrator, and also breaks that fourth wall by talking to the player, acknowledging that we're there, and that's something, a mechanic in a game that I thought was actually really, really cool. It felt like I was in the game. It felt like I was there helping Senua. I was controlling Senua. Now these Furies though are followed by a darkness that is maybe one of the coolest voices I've ever heard, by the way. I don't know.
Their gods can see into your mind. They will use this power to destroy you.
I really like deep, menacing voices. I don't know why, it's just always kind of been a thing. So, I love that voice. But this dark entity is at the core of her curse. We'll go into what that represents further in the video, or later in the video. So, and also I learned that what she's carrying isn't actually Dillion's skull, it's a severed head. So it's his whole head, it's not just his skull, it's his head. And you'll find out why she's carrying that also later in this video. This is just a wee summary first. It all ties in together, don't you worry, troops. I've got notes. Taps on book. But aye, she's carrying Dillion's severed head to basically use as a vessel for his soul to take to Hela to try and save him. And she is guided by Druth. And I thought that was really cool, because I thought it was a case of, she's gone along this path and she just remembers things that Druth is saying. So she's I don't know, maybe reminiscing or something. But no, Druth is guiding her. And he was a former slave of the Norsemen who became her mentor and friend during year-long self-exiles. And I thought he was her brother, but I feel like it was probably a metaphorical, you know, like, brother, you know, instead of taking everything literally. So yeah, Druth was guiding her through the game with really amazing stories at Sigurd and Loki, and I really loved the stories that Druth was telling. And I thought it was a really cool aspect of the game. So she gets to the gates of Helheim and she finds out she has to defeat two gods, one of illusion and one of fire. The illusion god is Valravn. We all know how much of a pain he was to defeat. Well, I know how much of a pain he was. Like my fingers were cramping up and everything. I wasn't expecting a big fight scene. And Sort was actually kind of anticlimactic, I feel. I feel like Sort took like 2 seconds, record-breaking time to defeat a god. I don't know. He was a really cool guy. He was so cool. Both of them were amazing. Except for Valravn not wearing any trousers. That's kind of rude. But they were both really cool aspects of the game. I thought I really did like the fights. As much as Valravn was annoying, it was still really cool. And as you know, once we defeated... Oh, wait, you also got like a whole fucking... There was like a whole thing to go through just to get to fight Valravn and Sort. Like with Valravn you had to go through portals to make paths appear that weren't there before, and to fight Sort you had to... I don't even really know, to be honest. Like that part didn't really make sense to me, but basically I think you lived through the memories how he killed people. Or how Druth died. I think that was like basically you getting told how Druth died. When he was a slave to the Northmen and all that, so. And then when you defeat the two, you finally get to a bridge where you get to open that gate with 2 seals and you get to a bridge. Now, I don't know if you remember this bridge because it was way at the start of the playthrough, but yeah, you were met by fucking Hela, the goddess of death, I think, in Norse mythology. And she's not just the size of an average person. Let me tell you that. She's a huge boy. She's a tall boy. No, but she is big. She's half death, half person. She's terrifying. She is Hela! But yeah, she swipes you off that bridge. She basically just wipes you off the bridge. She's like, yes, dust. And nearly kills Senua with a flick of the wrist. And also smashes Senua's sword as well, rendering her basically defenseless. And then when Senua regains consciousness, she sees a Dillion-shaped light, who is also encouraged by Druth to keep going, I think. I can't remember, that was a while ago. But basically, she gets led to a tree that makes her face 4 challenges, all linked to her past. So that's why those missions were kind of weird. And like, Dillion was in them and all that, because they were all linked to her past. So, Emma will go on to her past in a second. Again, this is just kind of summary of the story. But yeah, she has the 4 challenges so that she can then get a sword called Grammar, so that she will be able to fight gods. Because this is a sword that Odin made. I'm sure. No, or it was made for Odin. No, it was made for Sigurd or something. It was, I don't know. Great summary. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's not in the notes why the sword was made. It's just a summary, trips. And the challenges were kind of tough. They were really cool, but like there was one and you were like in darkness or something, and Dillion was talking to you, I think. And that's also kind of the time where you get to see Dillion's face for the first time, from what I remember. But there was like weird creatures in the background, like just kind of farting about around you when you're in the complete dark. And it's kind of scary because you don't know what these are, and to be honest, they look like weird things. Was a game called The Forest? If anyone's ever played The Forest, I haven't, but I've watched Neeb's gaming play it, and I know there's mad fucking weird arm creatures. I'll see if I can get 40 feet because they're weird, and I kind of thought that's what they looked like in the dark. But here we are. Now, a wee bit into Senua's past before we move on. As you know, her backstory is revealed in non-linear order through hallucinations because she's mentally ill, really. Her mother, Galena, who also suffered from the same curse, but she didn't believe that it was a bad thing. She didn't think that it was a curse. Although Zenbel, Senua's dad, and Galena's husband, I assume husband, they might not have been married. The specifics aren't important right now. But he was incredibly religious, and he's also the same guy, or the same voice actor as the deep voice, the darkness in your head, which is pretty cool. But he is very incredibly religious, so he thought that Galena was cursed, and he didn't see her mental health as being a good thing. So unfortunately, as we saw in the last couple of episodes, he burned her alive, and Senua had to see that, man, and she was only 5 years old apparently when she saw her mum getting burned alive, and honestly I can only imagine the effects that would have on you growing up and worsening her mental health. Like, it was probably bad to begin with, but then she sees her mum getting fucking burned alive, and then she's like, oh, 10 times worse. But also, what they are actually suffering from is psychosis. Now, I thought, like, I went through this game just thinking it was all sorts. I was like, is it schizophrenia? Is it depression? I don't know. I knew it was a mental health thing, first off, because there was mental health specialists at the start of the game. But I just didn't know, because mental health is there's a spectrum, you know, like there's lots of different conditions out there that affects the human mind, and it's really scary sometimes. Well, it's not scary, it's absolutely nuts, like how different everyone is. But psychosis is basically a severe mental disorder, which means your thoughts and emotions are so impaired that you kind of lose contact with outside reality. So that's what Senua was going through. Like, she just lost track of what was real, I think. And obviously her mum went through that as well, but she didn't see it as a bad thing. But because Senua was so young and didn't really get maybe an explanation of her mum or anything like that, she grew up believing in what Zenbel told her. And Zenbel convinced her that she's cursed, and apparently emotionally and physically abused her and isolated her from the world. But that was until she met Dillian. And also, there's no second names that I've saw. It's just Zenbel, Galena, Senua, Dillian, Druth. No one had second names back in the day. But yeah, that was until Dillian visited her village and threw her world upside down. Now, as you know, thankfully, Senua ends up leaving Zenbel. We even saw the wee altercation because I had to go back and record it twice. I don't know if something happened to the footage. But we saw an altercation where basically he hit Senua, and then Senua was like, you know what, fuck you, I'm leaving. And she does that. She goes to be with Dillian. Because Dillian treated her like a person. He saw her as being misunderstood instead of being cursed, and treated her like she was a fucking animal like Zenbel did. Unfortunately though, when they were in Dillian's village, plague, I don't know what kind of plague it was, but back in those days it was probably rife, wasn't it? Plagues and that. So a plague ended up killing most of the people in Dillian's village, which, because Senua had been so mentally fucking abused by her dad to think that it was a curse, she then thought that it was her fault that a plague killed everyone. So she thought she'd killed all these people, when obviously she didn't. So she left in a year-long exile to kind of see if she could leave the darkness behind. But when she came back, as we saw in one of her hallucinations, the village had been slaughtered by the Norsemen, and Delian had been left in a blood ego, like that's what that thing he was left in was called, as a kind of offering to the Norsemen's gods. So obviously again that made Senua blame herself, and probably really didn't help with the psychosis, because now she's got all Zinbel's mistreatment and abuse. Now with the guilt of killing a whole village that was nothing to do with her. She wasn't even there. And you can't help a plague. Like, you literally cannot help a plague. Like, we're in 2021 and we're still going through a fucking plague, so you can't help it. Just thankfully we have medicines these days. But after the slaughtering of that little village, Senua remembers what Druth has told her about Norse mythology, about the legends of the Norsemen and all that, because he was very clued up since he was a slave. I don't know if that's why, but he was just clued up on their legends. So she remembered what he told her, and she decided to go on a journey to try and save Delian's soul, hence carrying a severed head. So there you go, that's the story of how Delian and Senua met, right? And it's really cool. It's really interesting that you get to hear that kind of stuff in backstories about what happened to the Norsemen and all that kind of stuff. It's not told to you directly. And if you miss Druth's talking, telling things, his stories, then you'll probably miss a lot of the details of it. And I think that's a really cool way of getting stories across in a game. It's a really cool system. So, you want to know what the weird frickin' ending was all about? Well, let me summarise that up for you, my little people. Because you're all tiny, and I'm huge, right? I am Hela. But to basically summarise the end of the game, Senua has to fight the influence of the darkness in her head, the psychosis. And she realises that the darkness, the big, deep, cool voice, is actually a representation of Zinbel's abuse and his beliefs. So they're not her thoughts. So she frees herself through the Furies, and I think that's what that whole, the scene in the second last episode of this playthrough where there's two of her in a mirror. I think that's what that is. Like, you hear the voice in the background, and you hear the Furies telling her not to go inside because they don't want to be left, but I think that's what the other Senua is. And she's like, nah, I know you're not real, so I'm leaving you behind. So, she frees herself for the Furies, as they're called. And then we have to go into Hell and fight Hela's warriors. And I've learned there is no way to survive. You basically just kind of keep going as long as you kind of think until you get defeated and killed. And then we get a nice wee snippet of Delian reminding her the importance of accepting loss. It's a cute long speech, and honestly I feel so bad for Senua, man. Like, she's got mental health issues and then she loses the love of her life to then realise she can't bring him back. But the really weird part at the fucking end of the game, that never made any sense to me, was you look up, the camera pans out, and someone's dropping Delian's skull into the abyss. And it turns out it's fucking... Oh no, you see Hela before that actually, and then she drops his skull into the abyss. But it's Hela! And you're like, what the fuck happened there? Why is the Hela? Have I been playing as Hela the whole time? And blah, 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 blah. It was confusing as fuck. But basically, apparently... Oh, and then she turns into Senua, and then Hela's dead in the background. Like, what is that? But apparently that just means she's accepted, like Senua has accepted that saving Delian wasn't possible for the beginning. So that's why she traps his skull in. She's like, man, I can't even wasting my time this whole time. But yeah, and that she accepts the inevitable, that saving Delian wasn't an option. and but she also accepts that she wasn't responsible for his or the village's death. And I think that's really amazing. And she then accepts the Furies as being part of her, instead of being this curse that Zinbel said she was. And again, now that I know that's the message the fucking game was trying to get across to me, I probably should have seen it earlier, but apparently I don't pay attention that well. Apparently I just don't pay attention sometimes. Personally, I think that's a really beautiful sentiment to get across. I mean, maybe especially in 2021, where there's a lot of mental health issues going about. I know there's mental health issues going about whether or not we're in a pandemic, so I get that. So just teaching people about mental health and accepting themselves for it is important any day of the week, not just in a pandemic, I suppose. So it's just a really good story to get across in a game, I think. Again, also the acceptance of loss and accepting that not everything's your fault. Again, a lovely thing to get across to people. It's just a really good game all in, man. It's a game I loved. Although I was confused, I'd say about 98% of the time. But that didn't make me love it any less. It didn't make me think, oh, okay, I don't get it, so I'm not going to play it. If anything, again, after editing all these videos, it's something that I wanted to know what was going to happen next. I was like, right, okay, when's Wednesday coming so I can play this game again? And it was worth it. It was definitely worth it. I'm glad I put it on the channel. I hope whoever watched it enjoys it. Enjoys me getting jump scares a couple of times. Because there are some jump scares. It gets kind of scary sometimes. People just jump out of you from nowhere. It's terrifying. But, oh, and fucking, I don't know, I'd maybe get a 9 out of 10. And the only reason I don't want to get a 10 out of 10 is, I don't know, why do I not give it a 10 out of 10? Fuck it! It's getting 10 out of 10, man. 10 out of 10, thumbs, Ace of Space Gaming. That snow's getting fucking bigger.
How do you focus?
But 10 out of 10, thumbs, Ace of Space Gaming, you heard it here first, troops. Although, again, something I've heard is people with mental health issues not actually being able to play the game. And to be honest, as someone that does kind of suffer from anxiety, I know it's not the same, but it is kind of on the mental health spectrum. But anxiety is annoying to live with, man. So I can understand it, you know, I can understand not wanting to listen to those voices. But something that's really, really important, that if you do play this game, if you go to the actual Hellblade webpage, I'll maybe link it in the description if I remember, or sorry, I forget everything. But they have a helpline on the actual webpage, and that is something that I feel is so, so important, honestly. It's actually a UK based company that published it. It was published by Ninja Theory, and they're a British video game development studio. So thank you, Ninja Theory. I think that's really amazing that they have also included mental health help on their webpage. Very important to get across, especially in this century where a lot of people are suffering from it, of various levels of it, I guess. Just especially to everyone. Like I was going to say gamers, because, I mean, we're too busy not leaving the house and gaming, so to know that there's help out there. You know? I'm kidding. Gamers leave the house sometimes. That's a joke, obviously. But I think I'm going to leave it here, because I think I've summarised the game pretty well, and I'm sure you know how much I love the game. I've said it nearly every time I play an episode, as well as what's going on. So I enjoyed it, definitely 100%. Confused 90%. I know those numbers don't add up, but just bear with me. Yeah, I highly recommend playing it if you haven't played it already. And there's a different ending to the ending I got. If you get all of Druth's stories, then I'm not going to spoil it, but he talks to you at the end, I think. I don't know what happens because I've not seen it, But just so you know, there are different endings to the one that I got. I don't know how it pans out differently. It's probably essentially the same ending with a couple of differences, but it's just interesting to know that there's different routes to go down apparently. It's just, again, just a really good fun game to play. If you like story-driven games, then honestly, give Hellblade a shout. And also, there's apparently a second one coming out, and I don't know if you saw the trailer for that bad boy, but the music in that is fucking amazing. Honestly, maybe I'll put the link of that in the description too if I remember. Ever remember. Big if. But I'm not gonna leave it here, troops. So, you never know if there's a second one out. Maybe I'll play in the channel. Hopefully not 2 years later though, right? But troops, wherever you are, day or night, I hope you're having a good one. And I hope you enjoyed the Hellblade series and gameplay series playthrough as a whole. Let me know if you did in the comments. If you did, subscribe, like, you know, the whole usual YouTube shebang. But I hope you're staying safe and clean wherever you are. And until next time, this is the end of Hellblade and Senua's journey, sacrifice today. Until next time, whenever that may be. Thumbs! And Senua, Delian, Ruth, Zinbil, Galena, the Furies, the Darkness. We are here!